Star Wars Outlaws has arrived on Nintendo Switch 2, and it is a fantastic port, which makes the rough shape that Elden Ring is in on Nintendo's new console all the more confusing. We'll dig into that, plus look into some more current-gen ports on their way to the Switch 2 on Next Gen Console Watch, coming up after these messages. Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show discussing all the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hatfield, and as usual, I'm joined by Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond, and Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked. And today we're talking about current gen ports to the Nintendo Switch 2. Cyberpunk was there at launch, was really good. Now Star Wars Outlaws has arrived on the hybrid system, and our friends at Digital Foundry, who know a thing or two about when a game is running well on a system, they call it a ray tracing revelation and an extraordinary port. So this is encouraging news for people who would like to play current gen Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 games on their Switch 2. But then there is Elden Ring on Switch 2, which we played at Gamescom last month and found to be in really rough shape. And that is a PS4, Xbox One game. There's also Borderlands 4 coming soon. Some hands-on reports from PAX recently are less than glowing. So let's start with Max. You've been playing Star Wars Outlaws on Switch 2. How are you finding it?
Surprisingly good. I think like a lot of people, there were some early reactions that it didn't look so great. I think expectations for a current gen game ported to Switch 2, a big, large Ubisoft open world game at that. I think expectations are kind of on the floor, but it's shockingly good. And then I think just out the gate they had a patch that made it even better. So it's really just genuinely surprising and really kind of gives me some hope for what we can expect in the Switch 2 moving forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this game is great. I didn't finish it when I was playing last year. I think I bounced off and went off to something else, Indiana Jones or something. But it's a fun game. I know, people had their mixed feelings about it at launch. Ubisoft went in and did make a bunch of changes to it along the way. Mm-hmm. They patched some stuff in combat, some stealth, things like that. When I was first playing it, there was a little bit of texture pop in. It's not a 60 frames a second mm-hmm. frame rate. It's noticeably slower, but it generally looks and plays really well. And I think the little sprinkling of bells and whistles they added for the Switch stuff, there's like touchscreen inventory, there's some motion controls, nothing super egregious, but it just feels like a very thoughtful, considerate, well done port. And I kind of hope that this is the move going forward for Ubi, because they were in some dire straits financially last year, and mm-hmm. they came back swinging. Assassin's Creed Shadows is one of the best games of the year. I know that I think Outlaws and Avatar both supposedly underperformed.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I want people to make games. I want say what you will about the company. I like it when games are sustainable and we can get more of them. So if Ubi can double dip by porting more games to the Switch 2 and not have them be complete low res shovelware, then cool, great, fine by me. I think that's awesome. As for the Elden Ring of it all, worth pointing out that doesn't even have a release date yet. We're still waiting to find out when that's actually coming out. So I get the feeling it's not quite ready to take it out of the oven.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, they're just saying 2025. It does occur to me that of the games that we're talking about running on Switch 2, that Ubisoft, it could be just a matter of them being a little hungrier, because as you're saying, Star Wars Outlaws was disappointing for them sales-wise, even though I liked the game. I played it for several hours. I think if I remember what happened was Astrobot came out, and then I bounced off it and just played Astrobot.
There it is.
But yeah, maybe just like Ubisoft saw an opportunity to reach a new audience for their game. So they really put in the work to make sure that their port of Star Wars Outlaws turned out well. Ryan, did you play Star Wars Outlaws?
Yeah, I put a good 10, maybe 15 hours into it. Same thing. I didn't finish it. I did end up bouncing off of it, but I played enough to have thoroughly enjoyed it. In maybe a quieter year, I might have gone back to it, but this year, my backlog is just getting very long very quickly. So I don't personally anticipate going back to Outlaws, but I did enjoy it, and it's good to see that Ubisoft has continued to support it post-release, and to hear that people that are going to dive in for the first time on Switch 2 are going to get a really good experience. And I wonder if part of it too, this is where I wish that I had a game developer just like sitting with us right here on this particular episode, because I wonder if part of the sort of good or bad about a Switch 2 port could depend on whether the game engine is more CPU dependent or GPU dependent. And there are definitely ways in which the game is fundamentally architected that might play better or worse with the Switch 2 hardware. And this is one of those times where I wish we had a phone a friend for a game developer right now.
Yeah, yeah. I saw someone make a comment that, you know, they got the original Game Boy in 89 or 90, very primitive, you know, black and white screen. Then fast forward to today, and they're on their latest handheld, they can play a game with beautiful ray tracing on it. It's pretty cool to think about it that way. But yeah,
no,
so
it's really cool. I want to point out there is a sort of magic novelty of playing, you know, a big quadruple AAA console game on a portable system, and we got some of that with the Steam Deck, which again is a portable PC. But the fact that we're seeing this stuff running on a little Nintendo handheld is just there's something very special about that. And for anybody who's considering double dipping, one of my favorite things about this is that it has cross progression. So I just downloaded my cloud save, logging into Uplay or whatever, and it just picked up where I left off, which is just such a, you know, quality of life thing.
Yeah, that's good to know. I wasn't even aware of that. But you mentioned the Steam Deck, and my Steam Deck runs Elden Ring just fine. So, I mean, it doesn't look quite as good as it does on my PS5, but it runs it smoothly. So I don't know what's going on with that port. I think a lot of FromSoft fans will point out that FromSoft's just not great at optimizing, just in general. So, and then in the
By
case
the way,
of
speaking of great ray traced games coming to Switch 2, I'm currently playing the DLC for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which was my game of the year last year. That's coming to Switch 2, and that game is ray traced to heck and back. So I'm really curious to see how that is going to fare as a Switch 2 port.
Yeah, I was going to mention that for sure. It's coming. It's going to include the DLC in that release, as you mentioned. And then with Borderlands 4, I think even people at IGN have had the game for a little bit, and they've been playing it on pretty high-end PCs, and it hasn't even been running well for them all the time. So I know there's a day one patch coming that Randy Pitchford says does a lot. But it just seems like maybe there's something going on with Borderlands 4 across the board. And I forgot about FromSoft struggling with Elden Ring. Their next announced game is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, The Duskbloods. So here's hoping that that one fares better than Elden Ring. But it's seeming to me like Star Wars Outlaws, Cyberpunk, and a few others. Street Fighter 6 runs well on the Switch. Seems like these are proof that the Switch is capable of handling PS5, Xbox Series X games just fine, and that if a game is struggling, I probably wouldn't blame the Nintendo Switch 2 for that exactly. What do you think, Max?
I think it really does come down to the game and the developers and how they're approaching it. Friendly reminder that, Tears of the Kingdom ran on Switch 1. It's a incredible, stunning game that, again, they were only focused on making it run on there. So that's kind of my hope for the Duskblood specifically, is that by focusing on one piece of hardware, they can really refine the heck out of it. But I feel like we haven't quite, even as consumers, we haven't quite gotten a feel for what the Switch 2 is and isn't capable of. And I feel like that's even more true of developers. And as we see more and more studios, porting games, but also making games for it, really, it'll be interesting to see. Cause I think we are going to hit a point where, things are hitting PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch 2 day and date. And there's a conversation about which version do you want to get, which kind of reminds me of, I want to say, like the 360 PS3 era, where, you'd get things that come out on those two, and those would be fairly close. There'd always be the weird kind of, which handles it better? Does it take a good advantage of the cell architecture, or is it does it run better on 360? And you get the Wii version that was frequently a downgrade, but occasionally it would have some little, special trick to it that added some charm. But in this case, the special trick is that it's a portable console. Mm-hmm. So I think that goes a lot longer than something that's just motion controls. So yeah, I hope we see a lot of games getting.
I feel like in the early going of the Switch 2, really early going of the Switch 2 generation, we as gamers I think we're in a slightly better position with Switch 2 in terms of seeing those big third-party games come to the platform versus early in the Switch 1 life cycle. I remember back at the IGN San Francisco office when we first got The Witcher 3 for the Switch 1, and we were all gathered around it, sort of marveling that it worked at all, but it didn't run super great. Yeah. So I feel like I know I can't quantify this or really say it as anything more than kind of a hunch, but it does seem like we're in a slightly better position in terms of big third-party games for Switch 2 that here early in the generation than we were for the Switch 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are also a few more current gen ports that we expect, but we should acknowledge that we're actually recording this on Wednesday this week before the big Nintendo Direct that's happening Friday. So these will actually be going live around the same time. So Nintendo could very well announce some more ports coming that we just don't know about yet. But Ryan, you mentioned Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I had briefly forgotten that 007 First Light is also coming to Nintendo Switch 2 on day one.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know.
It's coming day one, which is March 27th next year. So I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised.
Well, I believe their game engine is called Glacier, if memory serves. The commenters will correct me instantaneously. I'm just going off of memory here. But, if Hitman ran okay, then Bond probably should run decently well as well.
Well, I mean, except the Hitman is 5 years old now, the most recent Hitman. So I don't know. This is their brand new game. I mean, I would love for it to arrive on Switch 2 and just be great, portable.
I will say there in that state of play, there was a lot of semi-concerning motion blur going on in that footage, and I don't want to make light of it. I mean, they're still in development, right? As you said, the game's not out till early next year. So, but yeah, like that seeing that would be a little worrisome for the Switch 2 version of it.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of the Switch 2. I'm extremely stoked for this game. I have a ton of respect for IO Interactive, but at the same time, I mean the Hitman World of Assassination Switch 2 version I think was a little shaky. It functioned, but I know people had some gripes with it. Meanwhile, they managed to put that on iOS. Yeah. So, they're very good, and it's easy to forget. I think we look at this as a Hitman 3 as a current gen game, but Hitman and Hitman 2 were on last gen, and then in the wake of Hitman 3, they went and basically gave the entire thing a whole next gen up-res remaster and rolled it all into one big game. So they know how to work with different types of hardware and how to make things look good given what's at hand. But I am skeptical that we're going to get a game that is taking full advantage of the PS5 and the Series X and offers the same experience on Switch 2.
Well, Max, how do you feel about Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade?
We'll see. I don't know. That's also a game that the art direction in particular I think does a lot of heavy lifting. Those games are unnecessarily good looking graphically, but at the same time I think you could maybe remove some of the the dimples and hair follicles and still have something that looks okay. And again, it's one of those weird kind of vestigial franchises where we got Remake on PS4, right, and then they did the PS5 version, and then the second one is on there, exclusively on next gen. So
more optimistically though, we're throwing out some huge name franchises, some serious AAA games that are coming to Switch 2. A lot of them remains to be seen how they're going to actually perform on the hardware. But again, I feel like for Switch 1, we were not having these conversations about nearly as many big AAA games on Xbox and PlayStation coming to Switch 1.
Well, a lot of this has to do with the expectation. Bear in mind the Switch 1 came hot on the heels of the Wii U. You look at the Wii U's launch lineup, and it's full of third-party ports. You had the Arkham City Armored Edition. You had Black Ops 2. You had Assassin's Creed 3. There was a ton of third-party games that made their way onto Wii U with special gamepad features that I think some of them didn't really get much attention. But yeah, again, coming out of that, I think people were extremely wary of the Switch, regardless of the hardware specs, just because they were unsure of the adoption rate. And then it was the exact opposite with Switch 2. I think that with we had a ton of launch titles, a lot of people eagerly trying to port their games to it, but also because of the expectation, I feel like Nintendo was really really kept that thing locked up, and to the point where developers weren't getting their hands on it early enough to start working on these things. I mean, that's mostly just speculation, but I feel like, haven't we heard stories about them being just, people would have gotten started on putting stuff on Switch 2 had they gotten dev kits
exactly
in a more timely fashion.
Exactly. Yeah. The other one worth mentioning is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which is a year old and is coming to Switch 2 on November 14th. I would expect that one should turn out okay. But like Ryan said, I agree. It's just exciting that all these really big franchises are coming to Switch 2, and here's hoping that more of them turn out more like Star Wars Outlaws than don't. For our poll this week, we're going to switch gears. The biggest game right now that everyone's been playing is Hollow Knight Silksong, of course. I guess, man, has it only been a week? It's only been a week since that game's been out now. But obviously, it's been a huge hit. We know that you are probably playing it, but we want to know where. Where are you playing Hollow Knight Silksong? On PC, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch 2. You could have, the Wii U was almost an option there, but they had to cancel that version. So make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you next episode, just like we can the poll from our previous episode. We were talking about all the latest rumors on the PlayStation 6, how it might end up being a hybrid console, much like the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2. So we asked, do you want your next PlayStation to be a handheld hybrid or a dedicated home console? And it's pretty clear. Nearly 70% of you said you want a dedicated home console. Only 31% said they would like a hybrid one. Max, what do you make of those numbers?
Not terribly surprising, but again, we hear the rumors there's going to be 3 SKUs. I feel like one is going to be, digital only, one is going to have a disc drive, and then there's going to be some sort of, if any of this is true, there's going to be some kind of hybrid version. Mm-hmm. And you look at how people have adopted the PlayStation Portal. Like, people were like, yeah, I'll buy the $500 console, and then I'll pay $200 extra for a little screen controller. And imagine just sort of fusing those two things together. And yeah, I'm curious to see how that pans out. But I also don't blame the audience for wanting just a conventional console.
I think they just don't want to sacrifice power, right? That's probably what it comes down to. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for something to play right now that helps support a great cause, head over to Humble. Live now through October 7th. Grab 8 incredible games for just $14.99, including WWE 2K25, Destiny 2, Legacy Collection 25, The Plucky Squire, and Return to Monkey Island. Every purchase supports Team Rubicon, a veteran-led humanitarian organization that unites military veterans, first responders, and civilians to deliver aid where it's needed most. By joining in, you're not just building your library, you're helping communities recover and rebuild. And that's our show this week. Thank you to both Max and Ryan for joining me today. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week with more on the latest in gaming hardware, and we'll see you then. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by myself, Damon Hatfield, and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.